Welcome to the Mixing Vault's weekly audio podcast, hosted by producer, mixer, and engineer Nick Battistone and producer, mixer, and engineer Lewis Millard. So sit back and relax and stay tuned for episode 1.
Inside the Mixing Vault.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Today is Tuesday, January 27th, 2015, and welcome to the first weekly podcast of the Mixing Vault. I am producer, mixer, and engineer Nick Battistone.
And I'm producer, mixer, and engineer Lewis Millard.
And we'd like to welcome you to the first weekly installment of the Mixing Vault podcast. This podcast is going to be an incredible and hopefully entertaining source of audio education from the company that is going to be revolutionizing the way that you learn audio. So this, to be brief, I guess, this podcast will feature weekly updates on what's going on in the world of audio, reviews of plugins, tips and tricks, creative ideas, as well as a wealth of knowledge on the art and science of mixing. So before we dive in, since this is our first installment, I'm going to turn it over to Lewis and have him tell you a little bit about what it is the Mixing Vault does and what you can expect to see from us in the very near future.
The Mixing Vault is a brand new platform designed by myself and Nick. It's designed to help studio users in the home studio environment as well as more experienced studio users. Our aim is to help you get great recordings and even better final mixes. Together we've got a combined experience of 2 decades and over multi-genres. We now think we're at a point in our careers where we can help others out. And the important thing about this is we're based in 2 countries. There's myself, I'm in the UK, and there's Nick, who's in the US.
Right. And you know, that's that's really it, you know. As engineers who've been doing this for a while, we feel a great sense of responsibility to share the information that we've gained over the years. And if a lot of you are like me, who came up, you know, about 15 years ago in the world of audio, you know, the internet isn't what it is today. There wasn't a YouTube, there wasn't a Twitter, there weren't all these vast and incredible resources for gaining knowledge on the art of audio. For me, you know, when I started really taking audio serious around the age of 13 or so, you know, I had to spend every day in the library looking for books on audio engineering and recording, and track down every magazine that I could get my hands on. And then I would go with my friends and book time in local studios just so I could shadow the engineers and ask them questions and, you know, find out what mics they were using and why and what this piece of gear did. So, you know, it was a different time for guys our age and older who were coming up. And, you know, we had to have a real strong drive and desire to want to learn about audio. And you know, aspiring producers and engineers today have that drive, but there's a whole world of information out there on recording and mixing and producing. Now, some of it isn't accurate or informative, and that's kind of the problem. You know, you almost have an overload of information. So what the Mixing Vault is designed to do is take the best of that information that we've gathered from all over the world and all over the web and put it together in one place, along with an incredible wealth of proprietary information, tutorials, articles, blogs, tips and tricks videos, creative ideas, reviews and overviews of plugins. I mean, if you name it and can think of, you know, any educational method, we're going to employ it here at the Mixing Vault. And the great thing is the vast expanse of it all is going to be available for free. So you have one place that you can go and get an entire world's worth of audio information for free. the videos, the tutorials, the articles, everything's going to be available for free. But what's really cool is for those of you who are really serious about expanding your horizons and furthering your audio education, we are going to have a subscription-based service that offers you an extensive collection of exclusive materials. So I'm going to let Lewis tell you a little bit more about what you can expect from the subscription service as the Mixing Vault moves forward.
Okay, so our subscription service will be a monthly based service where you can roll it off month by month. So if you decide one month that you don't want to continue with it, you can just stop it where you are. However, you will not still be able to get access to our members area. Our members area is going to be for all subscribers that paid a monthly fee. You'll be able to get all of our content there. It's going to be literally a vault of content. You'll be able to get all of the free content there also, but you'll be able to download it yourself, have it on your phone, iPad, computer, wherever you want to have it. Also, obviously, there'll be a lot more content and more in-depth and longer tutorials than you'll find on YouTube. But however, our free content is not to be laughed at. Our free content will still be very educational. Also, along with the subscription, you'll be able to get hold of files that me and Nick have mixed ourselves, and basically you'll be able to mix it in your way, and you can send it back to us and we can critique it for you and help you out with a better mix. Obviously, you'll be able to basically you'll have the quality files that we have at your disposal. Obviously, you won't be able to put it out as your own music, but it just gives you experience at mixing a variety of genres.
Sure, absolutely. And, that's something that any engineer who has started out has had a challenge. You want to learn, you want to practice, but you don't actually have quality material to practice with. So that's a really helpful feature to have in the subscription service, is high quality, well-recorded audio sessions that you can sit and mix and practice over and over as you fine-tune your skills. So Lewis touched on a few of the features, but in summary, the subscription service will include exclusive videos only for our members, a lot more in-depth videos. We'll do complete mix deconstructions. So you'll have an hour or 2 hour long educational video that takes a complete mix and breaks it down piece by piece and shows you every technical and creative step in the process. You'll also have the practice sessions, which we just mentioned and discussed. There'll be a wide range of material from every different genre. So no matter what it is that you're working on, whatever type of music it is you like to do, you'll be able to find some high quality sessions in raw wave format so you can load them up in any DAW and get right to work practicing your skills. In addition, you'll also have exclusive ebooks and articles. We'll have a whole separate blog section just for our members. So there'll always be new information for you to read, whether that be a more in-depth product review, whether that be a tips and tricks section, creative ideas, suggestions, everything that's available in the free section, but a lot more of it and a lot more in depth. Furthermore, we'll also have exclusive offers from our partners. We don't want to talk too much right now on exactly what it is going on, as we're kind of just, getting the ball rolling in that area. However, we will be working with some larger corporate partners who are in the audio industry, and they will be offering you some exclusive discounts and special deals just for our members. Furthermore, we'll also have some free downloads, whether that be, again, sessions, free plugins that we find, sample libraries, impulse responses, you name it, it'll be available there for our members. And last but certainly not least, you'll have access to our members-only webinars. We'll be starting them off, probably doing them about once a month or so, but as the Mixing Vault continues to grow, as the Mixing Vault continues to grow, you'll see more and more of those webinars becoming available. They'll be hosted live. They'll feature, Lewis and myself, as well as some other engineers in the future, where we'll start with a mix and completely deconstruct it and break it down live while we're answering questions from our viewers. And of course, as the Mixing Vault continues to grow and expand, more features will become available to our members. Now, one of the things, speaking of questions that we get from from viewers and from artists and such, is, why do I hire a mix engineer? Why is it important to hire a mix engineer? I know that, I've had some videos on YouTube here for a while in preparation for another project that I'm doing, and I get emails from viewers all the time. Why should I hire a mix engineer? I have a studio that I build in my home, whether it's an elaborate home studio or a small project studio. I'm recording myself, I'm producing myself. Why shouldn't I mix my own songs? So to give you a little bit more of an insight on why you should hire a mix engineer, I'm going to turn it over to Lewis. So Lewis, why should an artist hire a mix engineer?
I think it's important to hire a mix engineer as an artist because you're getting the right person for the job that you need to be completed. For example, you wouldn't ask a gardener to fix your car, vice versa. You wouldn't ask a mechanic to do your gardening. So I personally think, as a musician, you should, if that's the avenue you chose to go down, you should definitely stick to it, because trying to be an engineer or a producer and do your own tracks at the same time, it can get you too close to your own projects.
Right.
Also, if you're mixing them yourself, because it's your own, you sort of, you never think that it's good enough.
Right.
I mean, there'll be probably a few projects that you've worked on, I know me and Nick have, of our own, that you never finish or never is finished because you're never happy with your final mix. Whereas, obviously, an engineer will basically, they'll give you like a few different mixes. I mean, they'll give you your first mix, and if you like that, you say, yeah, can you just enhance it a bit more, or can you just put a bit more of this there? Obviously, you need to listen to what the engineer's saying also, because that's what they do. But people seem to think hiring an engineer that they're just going to do it once, and if you're not happy with it, then that's your problem, sort of thing. But normally, a mix engineer will give you your first mix and say, how do you think it's sounding? And then afterwards, if you like it, they'll enhance it, do whatever they need to do. If you don't, they'll change it for you. It's not a problem. And people seem to think that they can't speak to producers and sound engineers because they think that they're going to sort of laugh at what you're trying to say to them. But obviously, at the same time, you need to understand that it's people like you that is the reason that they have a career. Without you, they wouldn't be able to do what they do as a job. But basically, I'm just saying, you need to, if you want a great finished product, send it off to a professional.
Right, absolutely. And that's one of the biggest things. And by the way, I apologize for continuously clearing my throat. I'm just getting over a miserable flu. But that's one of the big things, when it comes to mixing your own material is as Lewis said, you get too close to it. And, you spent so much time recording and, producing and, writing the material that by the time it comes to mix it, you're just not in a position to make those critical decisions and be objective about it. And that's the real challenge is, you may have worked on this guitar solo for 5 days, writing it and re-recording it over and over again. But, when it comes down to it, it just might not fit the material. And you wouldn't make the decision to cut it because you worked so hard on it. But a mix engineer who knows that that piece isn't helping the song, that the song would be better off without it, and that they can do more with the material if that piece was gone, they'll make the decision for you, and they will always make the best decision that benefits the song. And that's really, one of the most important things that a mix engineer does is they put the song first. They do whatever it takes to make sure that the song sounds the best it can be. And again, that's not always technical. That's the one thing people confuse engineers about, is that everything that we do is always technical. Yeah, the technical end of it is a big part of our jobs, and that's a big part of what gives us the ability to do the things that we do. But we're just as much, if not more, creative than we are technical. A great mix engineer will add life and excitement and dynamics and emotion to your song. I mean, that's really what you want a mix engineer to do. They're almost like a second producer in a way, and that's always the way that I've tried to conduct myself in the work that I do, is putting the song first and doing whatever I can to make sure that when that final mix is done, it grabs the listener and it gives them a reaction, because at the end of the day, that's what music's about. It's there to make you feel something. And a mix engineer who knows what they're doing and is in touch with the material will be able to let the listener connect with that song. And again, when you're doing it yourself, it's just so hard to put yourself in that position to make the hard decisions. There was a song recently, I was going through some old hard drives of mine, and I found some old recordings from a band I was in years ago. And, I really wanted to have those songs mixed. And there was no way that I could do it objectively. Even though it was 10 years ago, I still remember spending a month and a half recording that material, and I wouldn't be able to make some of the hard calls. So I handed it over to Lewis and let him do his thing. And, I know one thing that I'm sure Lewis is going to want to talk about is thinking outside the box. And that's one thing that a good engineer will do is, you might vision a song one way, but a good engineer has an idea. And if you give them the ability and the freedom, they can run with it. And that's really what he did on the track that I had just sent him. So I don't know if you want to share that with him.
Right, yeah. Having freedom is a big thing for an engineer, because obviously if you telling them what to do, you may as well do it yourself, which
right.
Obviously is the reason that we're talking about hiring one, is because you're getting too close to your project. So if you don't give the engineer freedom to do what they feel is best, obviously it's going to be exactly the same situation as you're already in. You just be going in circles. But yeah, engineers have personally, me and Nick have think out the box attitude to mixing. So, like Nick mentioned, the material he sent me over a whole album's worth, and I listened to them and I was like, yeah, this could sound cool if I completely reworked it, sort of thing. So I sat down and I thought, what can I do with it? And it was sort of like the genre was like punk to start with, but some of the verses were sort of like on sort of like a hip hop rappy vibe. So I thought, obviously, right, what I'll try and do is if I just strip it right back to the vocals and one guitar, because obviously it was guitar heavy because the sort of genre that it was at the time. If I strip it down to just one guitar and I reprogram the beat to it, it can sound pretty cool in like a hip hop genre. So I done it, I stripped it all down, used some 808s and things like that. I'm still currently working on the other tracks from the album, but I think Nick was pretty happy with what I'd done.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, that's what was really cool about it is like you said, to begin with, it was, this material was recorded 10 years ago. The band I was in was a pop punk kind of band, and it was real guitar heavy pop rock music. And at this point, when you listen to the material as it was, it was cool, I guess, you know what I mean? Again, I'm too close to it to speak objectively, but it felt dated. And when I heard the first draft of what Lewis had done with it, I was amazed because it sounded current. I mean, it's something that you can envision on the radio today. It went from a dated pop punk song to a modern, pop, hip hop, top 40 radio kind of sound. And that's what a great creative, outside of the box thinking engineer will do. So giving them that freedom, opens up a whole new world of possibilities. And that's not to say that if you have a specific vision and you want an engineer to follow it, that, they won't do it and that you should just let an engineer do whatever you want all the time. That obviously an artist has certain visions and good engineers will respect your beliefs and your outlook on things. But, when you give a good engineer freedom, the sky's the limit, honestly. In closing on that subject, working with a great engineer can truly make a night and day difference in your material. You've worked hard on your music. You've, given a ton of time, effort, and possibly even money into making great recordings. So your music deserves the best. At the end of the day, we've talked about the creativity and, all of the, added features that working with a mix engineer come with. But, really at the end of the day, the one thing is experience. And that's truly it. A mix engineer specializes in mixing. And, you can't get a better result with your mix than giving it to somebody who has done, 10,000 mixes. That's what we've chosen to do with our careers and with our work, and we're good at it. So, trusting a great mix engineer can really give your music the sound that it deserves and help your listeners really connect with the material. So closing that subject up and moving on to the topic of engineering and creativity, we're going to head inside the mixing vault and do a little discussion on a few of our favorite plugins. If you're like the two of us, we sit around and talk shop and gear pretty much all day long. So every engineer loves to sit and talk about their favorite plugins and their favorite piece of gear. So we've decided to pick three of, our favorites. Obviously, we probably have a lot more than three favorites apiece, but we've chosen three plugins to sit and talk about. So I'm going to hand it over to Lewis to go first and talk about one of his favorite plugins.
Yeah, man. I do love a good plugin.
Oh yeah.
All three of mine actually. I wasn't happy that I had to narrow it down to three, but obviously the amount of time we have, I had to. But all three of mine are made by Waves plugins. Now, obviously, I don't know, everyone probably heard of Waves. I can tell you they're the best. You won't find better than Waves, I'm telling you.
Oh, absolutely.
But my first one is the L2 limiter. Now, I think there's only probably two occasions I can recall that I didn't use this on a mix myself. I think only two. Yep. So basically, this is one of my favourite. This is the limiter that I use all the time. Like, I don't use any other. Basically, it's just a great sounding plugin. I mean, it's obviously got your threshold, your out ceiling, your release. Mm-hmm. But the good thing about it is you could also choose your bit depth, so what bit depth you want it at. And there's three different diver types, including, obviously, you can completely turn it off, completely turn it on. You can have, there's a shaping feature where you can go from like completely none to ultra. So like I say, it's just one of the best limiters I've ever used, and I'll just continue to keep using it. I don't think there'll be one that comes out that I will choose over this one.
Yeah, I mean, the L2 is absolutely amazing. I mean, I think Waves really defined the limiter plugin when they made the L2, because I can't, as well think of a mix master that I haven't put that on my mix bus. I mean, it's just a reliable plugin that it's going to do exactly what you want it to do. So moving on to my first plugin of choice, again, much like Lewis, mine is a Waves plugin as well. Actually, two of the three that I'll be talking about today are Waves plugins. And I chose the Kramer Pi to talk about. And you know what? It's a really cool plugin that you don't really hear talked about too much, but I tell you what, it's incredibly amazing. If many of you don't know this already, it's an emulation of the Helios compressor, which try finding one of those in existence and available for sale today. I mean, you just can't find it. But, I mean, it's an incredible sounding analog emulation, and it's got character for days. I mean, I use this the most probably on kick and snare, just because, I mean, it's just got a feel. I mean, it's just got that it factor. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that you know when it's there, and I mean, it does the job of a true analog emulated compressor. As far as parameters, it's pretty basic, pretty stripped down. Threshold, output gain, decay time, which is your release, and then your compression ratio. But I tell you what, again, it's one of those things that when it's there. Soon as you throw it on, like I said, especially kick and snare is my favorite two things to put it on. But soon as you throw it on a snare track, it's there. It's got a great feel and a great character, and I feel bad calling it aggressive, but it's unique. You really have to hear it to believe how amazing it sounds. It's also good on toms and bass, but again, kick and snare are where I love to play with this thing. So Lewis, what's next up on your list?
I've got the SSL Master Bus compressor, but obviously it's made by Waves. Mm-hmm. This one, much like the L2, I use this one a lot as well. It just sounds so great. It's an emulation of the G series. Like Waves do the best emulation products you'll find, definitely, and it even just looks good as well. Like, it's got a VU meter on it, but obviously as you're compressing it, if you take it off, the needle takes a while to come back down as it would on the original.
Right.
You don't have to just use it on a master bus either. I use it on, I've used it on drum buses before. I've even used it on vocals before, I think, actually. And I like the fact it's got the analog, and you can switch it on and off.
Right.
But obviously I just normally leave it on. However, I will say, if you leave it on, if you're planning on using more analog emulations, make sure at least another few of them are switched off. Otherwise, you'll just get constant
it'll be
noise.
A pretty high noise floor, right?
But, if you're going to try it, give it a go. I'd say, as for release, have the auto release on, because that sounds the best. But definitely give that a go. If you've got that and you've not used it before, you need to give it a try. You can use it, like I say, not just on. You don't have to just use it on the 2 bus. You can use it on drums, vocals, whatever. It says master bus compressor, but I would never just stick to one thing with a plugin. If it says it's for a master bus, yeah, it's for a master bus, but also I can guarantee you'll get good results using it on other things as well.
Right. Yeah. Never exclude a plugin and kind of lump it into one category. That's for sure. I've used the SSL bus compressor on a wide variety of things, and as you mentioned, it's definitely a great drum bus compressor. That's certainly a really good point you made too. Is Waves really does make some of the best analog emulations out there. NAMM was just this past week, and they announced that they are putting out a DBX 160 plugin, which I have been begging for a long time. I have been the hardware piece is one of my favorite compressors to use on drums, so I'm really excited for that. But anyway, moving on to my next plugin, which is a Waves plugin as well, and that is the H delay. It's one of those things that I hate to say it's underrated, much like the Kramer Pi, but it's an incredibly versatile and great sounding delay. First and foremost, it works both mono and stereo, or my personal favorite mode to work in Pro Tools is multi-mono, where you can create different delay settings for both the left and right channels on a stereo track or bus. Inside, one of the great things that makes this plugin unique is the fact that it does have 4 analog emulations, so it works in 4 different analog modes. It also has what is my favorite feature, is the lo-fi selector. So just adding the lo-fi gives you a great gritty lo-fi kind of sound, which is one of my favorite things to play with on delays. Also, it has modulation that you can control the depth and rate, and built-in high-pass and low-pass filters, which again is another incredible feature. Saves me from having to insert a high-pass and low-pass filter on my delay return when using other delays. Also, a great function is the fact that you can tap tempo right in the plugin. So, that's a great feature to have. And of course, the plugin syncs with your host BPMs. So that makes things a lot easier when wanting to set up, fixed interval delays. So honestly, I've used a ton of delay plugins, and I can't think of a session where the H delay is not on at least one of my delay returns. It's just an incredible sounding plugin, and I give Waves tons and tons of respect for putting this bad boy out. So what's your final plugin, Lewis?
My final one, again, from Waves, is the CLA2A. Now, this is again a great emulation. This is I do use this one quite a lot, but I find with this one it has to be like a certain sound to use it. Mm-hmm. For example, it's great for vocals, of course, right? But it just gives you a vintage sound that I can't. I mean, I've used other plugins that emulate the same thing, but they're not. This one just gives you a sound that you can't find anywhere else. I mean, It just gives you a vintage sound. Obviously, there's two controls on it. There's the gain reduction and the gain and the peak reduction. So there's two controls. So it's easy. It's simple to use, but it's in with the big boys, definitely. And you can choose how much of the analog noise you want also. But yeah, I used this. In fact, I used it on the vocals for Nick's tracks that we were speaking about earlier, actually.
Okay. Yeah, and the CLA plugins, I mean, first off, all of the CLA plugins are incredible. I give a mad props to Chris Lord-Alge for working with the Waves team on coming in and modeling his gear. And that's the cool thing about analog emulations, and especially one specific like the CLA is, I mix in an analog digital hybrid studio, with a console and outboard gear. And I've always worked in analog format one way or the other. And one thing that's so true is that no two pieces of analog gear are alike. You can have, Chris Lord-Alge can definitely verify this, a rack full of 1176s. You can have 15 1176s, and not two of them are going to sound the same. And that's a really cool thing. And, Chris obviously has a great ear for gear. And so Waves came in and modeled his favorite LA2A, and that's the CLA2A that Waves has put out. And again, like Lewis said, it's great. It's got a cool tone. It's amazing on vocals. I've used it on a ton of other things. It's one of those plugins that almost every time I open up a vocal track, one of the first things I reach for when it comes to a plugin is the CLA2A or the CLA3A, and drop those on just to hear how it sounds. Like Lewis said as well, it doesn't always fit, because again, it's kind of a, one of those plugins that's it's a fixed attack and release. So, it really has to fit the track and the character of what you're putting it on. But when it fits, man, it fits. You know what I mean? It's one of those plugins that it's pretty versatile, and it does work on a lot of stuff. But, when you find it on a track that it works on, it really works. So on to my last plugin. This is the only one on my list that isn't a Waves plug, and this is the Glue by Cytomic. And basically, it's a SSL G-Bus compressor emulation, very similar to the Waves master bus compressor that Lewis had just discussed, except this has a few more features, and that's why I like this plugin a lot. The first thing I'm going to mention, which is probably the main reason why I love this plugin so much, is the built-in high-pass filter on sidechain. That is worth its weight in gold with a master bus compressor, especially for me, considering I mix a ton of rap and hip hop projects. Anybody who's mixed 808 heavy hip hop knows that as soon as you put a master bus compressor on your master, as soon as the 808 starts hitting, it's just grabbing the crap out of your compression, and you start getting that pumping and that ducking from every time the 808 hits. It's just grabbing the compressor and slamming it down, and that's one really cool thing about the Glue is it has a high pass filter built in on sidechain. So for me, I usually set it around 175, 190, somewhere in there, and that allows the detector circuit of the compressor to ignore anything below that range. So that means all of the 808, all of the weight in the 808s are, in and around 100, depending on, which 808. So this allows the detector circuit of the compressor to ignore that and really focus on the rest of the material. So it helps really glue your mixes together while preventing your 808s from destroying your compressor and pumping the hell out of it. So that's, the primary feature of this plugin that I love the most. The second thing that I really dig is the fact that it has a wet dry knob. It's got a mix knob, which again, very useful on a master bus if you're really trying not to overly compress. You want a little bit of the dry signal in there. I personally play with it around like 70% when I'm using it on a master bus. But that's also a really cool feature when you're working on group buses like drums. I've used this on strings before. I've even, I think, played with it on guitar a few times. So that's a really cool feature to have when you want to blend, kind of work with a little bit of parallel compression and you want to blend the dry and the compressed signals together. Having that mix knob built in really makes things easier. For the rest of it, it's pretty much the same as the Waves SSL bus comp as far as, threshold, makeup gain, attack, release, ratio. It also has a range setting. So, as far as that stuff goes, it's pretty standard to the SSL bus compressor, the G-Bus compressor, but with a few added features that really make this thing a home run, in my opinion. And one thing I know Lewis and I discussed too is, again, I'm not somebody that, loves presets when it comes to dynamics and EQ and stuff. But what's really cool is the Glue actually comes with a ton of presets that give you some interesting starting points, especially when you start to play around with other instruments. Just looking at it really quick, it's got presets for drums, for kick, overhead, room, snare, tom, bass guitar, electric guitar, key, strings, backing vocals, lead vocals. So there are a ton of really cool starting points to throw this plugin on and use it on tracks and on groups and instruments that you may not have actually tried it on before. So again, when it comes to presets, you never want to just throw a preset on a plugin and leave it as is, unless it's one of those rare occasions where it just happens to sound good that way. But a preset is a great starting point for anything. So play around with it and definitely check this plugin out. Great plug, great price. It's the Glue by Cytomic. So.
Yeah, I'll just add one more thing about the preset thing. On your master bus, there is a couple of presets with it. One's called the Glue and one's called the Glue 2. Now, if you've just got your rough mix that you want to just you just finished recording and you've got to go out but you want to listen in the car or whatever, just slap one of them on, play around with it for a second or so. But it's already a great sounding plugin. But another thing I did want to add about the plugins, obviously the plugins we've spoke about today, they're all like, they're not free ones, they're ones that we've had to pay for, and
right,
I mean they're not like the cheapest ones either. But all I want to say to you is, don't think just because you've heard us speak about them all that you have to go and buy them right now because they make your mix amazing. You need to understand that we've been using these plugins for a number of years. We're completely familiar with them. Right. So all I will say to you is, if you're just starting out with recording and mixing yourself, try just to stick with understand what each plugin does before you go and purchase like the Waves bundle that costs like thousands, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Try and understand what they do, because I know you get some with your DAW anyway. I mean, you don't always want to stick with them, but just use them as a reference start point. This way you can sort of understand what they're about and work out what each one does before you just go and buy the massive bundle and say, oh, it still doesn't sound good.
Right. Or, even to that note too, people who, again, I'm not trying to hate on anybody or put anybody on blast, but, those people who go out and download illegal versions of the plugins because they think, oh, if I can just get this SSL plugin and put it on all my tracks, my mixes are going to sound amazing. That's not the case. No one plugin by itself is going to make your mixes sound great. At the end of the day, they're tools, and it's the person using those tools that makes them great. A plugin in itself is awesome. It's a cool feature, but it's a tool. And a tool in the wrong hands is not going to make anything good. A good tool in the right hands is what makes a difference, and that's what makes a great mix. So that goes back to the fact and the point of using a mix engineer from before. But that's exactly it. Lewis hit the nail on the head. Learn what a compressor does first. Learn the differences in the types of compression. Learn, how adjusting the attack and release affects your vocal. Learn these things. Learn an EQ and what each frequency range does. It's all about learning, and that's what the Mixing Vault is here to do. The Mixing Vault is here to teach you these things. So when you actually have the opportunity to get these tools, they are in the right hands and you know how to use them. And that's what's going to make great mixes. So before we close it off, do you have anything else to add, man?
No, that's pretty much covered it all, I think.
Awesome. Yeah.
Actually, no, all I will say is if you're looking to pirate plugins, do not ask us, because we've had people ask us before, can you just send me this plugin? And I'm like, well, no, I can't. I tell you what, learn how to use it first. We can teach you how to use it, and then you can go and purchase it, because we do not endorse pirating any plugins or software.
Right. As a matter of fact, the last time somebody asked me if I could send them the plugin, I emailed them back and said yes, and then I went on Wave's website, I built a shopping cart, I added that plugin to it, and I sent them the link to it. So, definitely, again, learn what you're doing first. Become a master of your trade first. I know there's a lot of sculptors out there who could probably make a beautiful sculpture with just one tool. You know what I mean? It's the tools that don't make the master. It's the skills. So again, we encourage you to learn, and that's what the Mixing Vault is here for. So, on that note, please stay tuned. Things are really just starting to take off here and start rolling. We're putting everything together. Content is coming. There's going to be an official grand opening of the Mixing Vault here in the near future, if you will. So, stay tuned to that. Definitely keep your eye on our Twitter. I personally tweet mixing tips almost every day. And I know the Mixing Vault's main account tweets some awesome and informative stuff a lot too. So follow me on Twitter at Nick Battistone. You can also check out my personal website at www.nickbattistone.com, or you can email me at nbattistone@gmail.com, or what am I, Nick Battistone at themixingvault.co.uk? Is that it?
.co.uk,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, .co.uk, right. And Lewis, you want to go ahead and give the locations where they can keep an eye on the Mixing Vault?
Yep, so you can find us on Twitter at The Mixing Vault, or if you prefer to type it in, URL www.twitter.com/The Mixing Vault. You can find us on facebook.com/The Mixing Vault, and my personal email is lewismillard@themixingvault.co.uk. Just before we finish up, I just want to shout out to AJ at Vibe Audio and P Money.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Definitely. And that's one thing, too. Definitely, guys, check out Vibe Audio. They have some really cool products, and I have a feeling you're going to see some exciting stuff coming from them in the near future as well. So I think that does it for us for this week. We thank you guys for stopping by and checking this out. And as always, Tell your friends, tell your brother, sister, girlfriend, whatever. Keep an eye on everything. Follow us. And make sure you stay tuned to the Mixing Vault because there's some great stuff coming. All right, everybody, have a good one, and we'll catch you next week.